Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry about the technical
No,
glitches.
no, it's okay. Sometimes these are just connectivity issues. Uh, you know, it happens to many people. And yeah, the only option is to keep retrying, restarting. I know it's frustrating, but anyway, it's great that, yeah, we are on finally. So, and thanks for, sort of your patience and persistence. Okay, so I will post this live and then you start. Okay, and you can continue to be in audio only mode if you want, or if you want to keep switching between video and audio, completely your choice. All right. Okay.
For sure. Sorry, Ritash, just not to disturb you in between, but I feel like the audio is getting faded again.
Okay. Now is it okay?
No, I'm saying that whatever we spoke about 10 seconds ago with the delay, it is getting recorded and it is playing back to me again. So I'm hearing your voice currently as well as what you told before.
Okay. Oh, there's maybe a lag or something. You're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
in
there's an
speak.
audio and video lag.
Yeah, you're not in speaker mode, right?
Yeah, I'm in audio mode.
No. But your speaker is not on, right? You're just using regular audio, na? Like, hello, hello, Sam. Okay. See, Sam, it's okay. There's a lag. You can speak slowly. Okay. I think it's definitely nothing but a network issue. Okay. All right. Uh, I can hear you. Okay. Yeah, Sam, I understand there's a lag. All right. So that's fine. We'll go slow. Respond as and when you hear. Only thing is, if you're logged into two devices by any chance, please log out of one place, and also, I mean, not your phone Insta, but your any other Insta if you have. Plus, also, preferably, don't use speaker mode. Okay, directly just you know like, or if you're using, I'm not saying earphones are a problem, but uh, it's up to you. Instagram can be sometimes difficult. Yeah. Can you respond, because earlier I was hearing you well? I can't hear any audio from you. Say something. Oh, you're saying something. I can only hear noise. I'm not sure if you're using earphones or what, because just as we started, I could hear you well. And there was no lag also from you. Now completely, yeah, I don't know if it's a network issue or a device issue or both. I think you're trying to say something, but I can only hear noise completely. Just a few minutes ago, it was fine. I don't know if you changed something, you like a
Can
device.
you hear me now, Ritash?
Yeah. Now it's fine. So I don't know if it was a position, or I don't know where you are or whatever, or it is you, if you're using, sometimes, like, where you do it. Hello, Sam. Hello, Sam. The second time you asked, can you hear me? Whatever. That time again it was fine. Again after that I've lost you.
Uh, Hi, Ritash. Now I can hear you. There are no more audios. So, like you suggested, let's go slow because I think whatever I'm saying now, I'll hear back in 10 seconds again.
Mm.
And then perhaps you can pose your question and then I can continue. Or,
Or yeah, again I've lost you. Hello. Hello. Hello, Sam. Oh my. To anyone who's joined, you know, apologies. There are some technical issues, including connectivity, device, network. Hello. Yeah.
hello. Oh, okay. This is better. Hi. Sorry.
Mm. Something happened, I think. No.
Yeah. So whatever we were saying, right? It got played back to me as if could hear a recording of what we were
Yeah,
talking
yeah, yeah.
about as you were speaking. So it was two voices were interlapping, and I couldn't make out what you were saying currently and what was being said before. So it was like an intermesh of both.
Yeah, yeah. That might have been one thing. Plus, but more importantly, I could barely. There was no clarity. Like only thrice I heard one sentence each, and there was lots of noise. Like maybe you were trying to speak or you were speaking, and there was only noise. So I think. Yeah. Anyway, obviously, not only I can't see you at all. I don't know if there's anything like even your. Oh my gosh, what happened again? Hello, hello.
Hi, Ritash.
You got dropped again.
Yeah, I got dropped again. I don't know why that happened.
Okay, that's what. Sorry. So I'm thinking it's a network issue only.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah. But anyway, let's continue. Let's see what happens. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And anyway, I can hear you well. It's completely like dark or black on your side, but that's fine as long as you can be heard. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry. I will introduce the live and you, and
Okay.
we will start. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So, hi everybody. Thanks for your patience. Sometimes these things are inevitable. So much for technology. And these are the realities, of course. Welcome, whether you're watching live or you're going to hear, read captions now or later, the recording. Anyway, it's wonderful to return this week on the eve of International Asexuality Day. That is 6th April tomorrow. And I am Ritash, one of the co-founders of Rang, Pan India Intersectional queer collective. When I say queer, obviously it's the entire LGBTQIAP plus umbrella, superset, whatever it's called. And also, I am ace, gender fluid with invisibilized disabilities. I'm neuro queer, and I have so many other identities. I'm a writer. But along with Nathan Sojesk, which is also, at least 5, 6 years, maybe slightly longer, they've been operating largely in Andhra Pradesh, in urban spaces, including small towns and all that, founded by two trans ace people. Yeah, so fantastic coincidence this is of meeting of aces. So we have been doing these Insta lives almost every weekend, continuously from December 2023 onwards. The idea is, and we've done it with people, I think not just in India, from all over India, but also in, I think about 10 countries across three other continents. Uh, so anyway, and they have been, Dalits, trans people, black aero ace persons, and non-binary persons, elder queers, people with this, queers with disabilities. Um, yeah, and the idea is to bring first person, um, you know, intersectional queer narratives in multiple languages. And so today we are very delighted having Sam, a transdisciplinary researcher, and also Ace. Apart from that, Sam is also a writer. And incidentally, both of us are from, at least grew largely in the same city, but of course, maybe a couple of decades apart. But anyway, what connected us was, interest, of course, in writing and research, and more importantly, I think us being, um, non-binary aces. Okay, and Sam, welcome. And if I have missed anything about your intro now or later, you can add. And this is a freewheeling conversation, yeah. And because I think that is what brings out, many things about ourselves. And yeah, so without much ado, Sam, again, thank you so much for joining amidst, your other schedules and plans. So yeah, now, it would be a cliched question, but anyway, what does IAD mean to you? And rather, I don't even have to presume that it means something, but I'm hoping that as an ace, a fellow ace, it might, mean something special, or at least have some significance. So yeah, over to you now.
Um, Thanks, Ritash, for answering that question. I just want to say it's nice to have this conversation today, and it's really cool of you to invite me. So that's really great. And yeah, coming to your question, what does IED mean to me? Honestly, I do have to say that it's probably just like the day when I guess a lot of my friends just like send me like sweet texts. And I sort of always forget, like over the past few years, I have forgotten that it has been International Asexuality Day, and it's my other friends who've sent me like sweet messages. And then I remember, so that was how it went. But tomorrow is like probably a bit more special because I have a sibling, and they are also in the large asexual spectrum, asexual aromanticism spectrum. So we're both planning to just hang out tomorrow in the evening. So yeah, I guess it's just taking time out with people you like, and in this case, like very similar people and having fun, I guess. Nothing really major is happening, but yeah. What about you? What does IAD mean to you?
Yeah, nice of you to ask that. And yeah, that's the best thing about these conversations, you know. We ask each other questions or respond and stuff. And I'm glad that you also, this is, I think, extra special in some ways, that you have a sibling, wherever they are on the ACE aero spectrum. Doesn't matter when we understand. I mean, obviously, if we can recall with pleasant memories, fine, or not so pleasant. But yeah, I think, IAD, of course, I mean, I'm 51. It is important, it's significant, though I feel like, for this long time, there's so many other days, and, every day should be IAD. In fact, yesterday I was at the, what do you say, Asia level, from 3 countries. We had again, informal conversation about 2.5 hours. It lasted, about IAD. And it's not just utopian. I think, while it is crucial and significant and great that there is an International Asexuality Day, uh, it should not kind of limit people to that, in a sense, not us aces, but people who are allos, allosexuals. For people who are, kind of new to the term, uh, allosexual broadly is people who feel sexual desire, attraction, arousal, and whatnot. But, or, could be in sexual relationships also. Anyway, uh, so, so the thing is that I think it is important because, it sort of at least focuses on it, um, on asexuality as a valid form of, and thoughts on that asexuality is possible, and, it's not, what do you call, not having sexual desire or having minimal, sexual attraction isn't about any dysfunction or, lack, or, what do you call, deficit, defect, something, right? I think, hopefully, in the larger scheme of things, and of course we have AS Awareness Week in October, right? So yeah, so this is what, yeah. But I will go. I'll talk a little bit later about what it meant to presume, that I was the only one without even knowing that word, or, that it is possible to not have sexual attraction. To live like that for the first maybe 35 years of my life was quite something in retrospect. But anyway, so Sam, I know you are a writer, okay? And I'm not sure if I've read too much about. I mean, I know when we had one-on-one conversations, right? We shared about each other's discovery of asexuality and all that. Right. But would you like to, reflect on that a bit, considering that, maybe you are in a time and age where there was more awareness, some community support was there, right? But yet, how has your journey been? Would you like to talk about that? Or what has helped you in finding affirmation?
Sure. I actually think that asexuality is a part of my identity I figured out first. And it was also the easiest part of finding out who I am. And it didn't, and this was a realization that also didn't come with like the label and understanding that I have currently. It just yeah, I just obviously remember feeling different when around puberty, like kids were in my school were interested in just talking about relationships and wanting to get into them, and talking about like their feelings and like romantic desires and stuff like that. And I just remember not relating, but also it was never a thing where I was thinking about it in terms of God is something different with me because I'm not thinking about it. I was always just, it's almost like I was the narrator in a book and I was very amusedly making observations as they were happening around me. So I don't think I ever felt like any sort of pressure to feel a certain way or to not feel the way that I was feeling. And this was not necessarily because I had great exposure to queer identities or just like a lot of queer literature or anything like that. I think for some reason it has always been something that was the easiest for me to figure out. I think what's more impactful in my journey has been figuring out my gender. So I'm genderqueer trans, and that's a thing that like I felt and I knew since I was young. But I had really the vocabulary for it only quite late when I was like 19 or something like that. And it took a while to figure it out. And I would like to say that I think because I figured out like asexuality, and then I just went around the whole wheelhouse of identities. I was like, yes, I am bi-romantic asexual. No, I'm pan-romantic asexual. Hold on a minute, I am aromantic asexual. Now that's figured out. Now let's actually look at the thing that has been niggling at me the whole time, which is gender. And I think for me, figuring that out and has been like a more, I would say, cathartic experience in like realizing my identity. I think that's still happening because identity gets produced in context, in and the context in which I live throughout my life are going to keep changing, because of which my identity is going to be in flux all the time. But I suppose to say that I felt sort of like I was embodying my self. That I felt sort of settled when I figured out my gender. So I think that was I guess realization, more of a queer coming out journey. And actually, it's funny that IAD and Trans Visibility Day fall within a week of each other. I just think it's very amusing that that's the case. I don't know if that was designed or if that just serendipitously happened, but I just thought about that. Yeah, so I don't know if that really answered your question, but that's sort of been my
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, yeah. So these are all, sort of what they call prompts or just some kind of, pointers that we can discuss. But none of these can have a definite or, going back to like academic short answer, long answer, something like that, or that answer, will be like, this is it. Because I mean, I resonate with so many people. So sometimes it's strange, it's funny that people call me elder queer because, irrespective of age, except that probably in relation to somebody, you might have discovered it earlier or later, but even that need not be, I'm not saying it need not be compared or it's anything wrong in comparing. The question is that, when there is no um, community, or rather no awareness, how do you find community? How do you find information when you don't know what to look for? Right? So that is the difference. But between my and younger cases experience, but again, because someone is 20 years older to me, there is no guarantee or certainty or even very high chances that they've heard of aceness as a term, as a label, or as a community, or having a support group, like in their teenage or early adolescence or something. I think even that is not a given many times, right? So yeah, but as you say, whether we actually understand that or not, asexuality or not, the way much of the world, or at least much of the age, some aces understand, we at least know that something about us is different, right? And yeah, plus also, I like the part you said, because again, I am, gender fluid, which comes under the larger trans non-binary umbrella. So I also cannot help noticing that IAD and TDOV come within just about a week of each other, right? So yeah, and yeah, sometimes I can't help saying this, that sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, suddenly, we become important, or at least important to ourselves, and then suddenly, like, okay, the next major thing in the world or whatever is in October. And again, transgender, though it's a more painful thing, transgender day of remembrance comes within like a month of that. Yeah. 20th November, and the face week is like final week of October, right? Month, or maybe 3.5 weeks. Yeah. So I think sometimes, much as, many trans people are questioned, oh, how can you be ace? Uh, because also people also have to be one of the two, or a so obviously, we, whether we like it or not, at least got uh, says their age, and of course they say that, they like, they are even more by this and all that, but it doesn't have to be about anything at all. So yeah, coming to, this thing about, uh, like, it doesn't even have to be that, yes, as you said, for us, gender identity, sexuality, so many things are, what do you call, different, or whatever they are, they're not from the binary thing or something. And do you ever get asked that, which is more important to you, or what is it, what defines you, or something? I am not asking that, but I've had those questions thrown at me and so many other people I know. So I'm just wondering if you are ever asked that, and if so, how do you, handle such kind of questions or conversations?
It's a really interesting question because I do think it gets posed, but not necessarily in that way. But people do ask, they're like, oh, I mean, if you don't, I suppose, if I say that my gender is different, then people mostly are, I mean, at least I'm sort of I move in social circles where it's, like people are generally quite okay. They just ask me inquisitive questions, but they aren't too, they don't come from a place of bad judgment. They are mostly just curious about what I'm saying. So it has just been questions about like me trying to explain what it actually means. So I do. It does sometimes feel like I give starter pack answers to people about just, well, this is introduction to gender to you, a random stranger who just asked me a question. And once I ask that, then people say, okay, then how does that like figure into how, whether you like people and things like that. And the funny thing for me is I always go into just aesthetic attraction because I feel like that is far more felt in my life. So I'm asexual. I'm sort of 90% sure I'm aromantic. And but the thing that I can tell you is that I am a very strong aesthete. In other contexts, I just usually just call myself a Wildian protege, because Oscar Wilde was all about the romantic and aesthetic movement. And I'm just a massive fan of like everything he's written and his politics and stuff like that.
Mm.
But yeah, people do ask me, well, how does this figure out in relation with that? And I don't necessarily have like an answer to them. But I do tell them that I do say that for me, I think it's also sort of important how I came to, I suppose, be more comfortable with myself. So the thing is, I did figure out that these identities applied to me a little bit before I uh, more critically imbibed it into the way I was living it. I feel like there's sometimes a buffer period between finding out who you are and then starting to actually I think sort of live it, and that's not necessarily because during that buffer period something great or nothing happens. It's just like life happens sometimes in between. Sometimes you process things and you compartmentalize some things because you are focusing on other things, and then you come back to these questions about self and selfhood. And I think one of the things that was really important for me, that sort of pushed me to also come back to the idea of personal identities, was just like starting to read queer theory in a very like academic context. So I came upon it, during my studies. But then, interestingly, unlike a lot of people who get introduced to queer theory through cultural studies or English department context, I came across it in an international politics context. Or rather, I should say, in a political science department. And it's very interesting. Then I started thinking about cross cross movement solidarities and like anarchist principles, as well as queer politics and all of these things together. So for me, my queerness has always been, yes, part of my identity, but like very importantly, it is something that like it's more political in nature. When I say I'm queer, I do mean like the fact that I'm actually anarchist. Like that's a very important part of me being queer. I would say sometimes even more important than you understanding what my like gender identity is about. It's okay if you don't understand. I hardly understand myself a lot of the times. No need for you to. I mean, if you're a stranger, it would be cool if you can use the right pronouns for me and sort of let me be and do me let me do my own thing. But if you do want to like engage with me, I think it's more important for me to be for me to have the space, also to have good conversations about I suppose politics and just things related to a more wider understanding of what queerness actually means. Yeah, I guess I know I'm saying like repeating the same points, but I don't want to also like name drop these like really niche thinkers randomly. But yeah, okay. I guess I could. So instead of maybe encountering queerness through like the works of, I guess, like Michael Warner and Lauren Bellon, I came upon it through the works of Jasbir Pawar and Rahul Rao, who already write about the intersections of caste and migration and disability and queerness all together. So that and reflecting on these things, I then later on came to my identity. So and then that little cogitation process got completed. So yeah, that's the sort of long-winded answer to whether or how I think about like these different, I suppose, aspects of my identity.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. There is no one way, there is no finally the end of all these things. And, or what do I call it? And it's not even that how, uh, through whom you resonate with, what, and what each of us interprets also so many ways, right? And the same person can interpret the same thing or supposedly same thing, whether it's a text or a video or whatever, something, a conversation, or our own selves, we can keep reinterpreting. No, I don't even know whether it's an interpretation, but currently I'm saying oh my gosh, I have never used the word reinterpreting myself, but yeah, it just
Mhm.
happens, right? So yeah, you know, um, I think it's finally about everything is kind of self-reflecting, self-reflexive, all right. So yeah, and that's the thing. So and like many people, I mean, like get offended when I say Judith Butler doesn't make sense to me. Okay. And they're like, oh, you're not read that, you don't understand, you're not bothering, oh, you're kind of reductionist, whatever. I mean, that is me, right? Don't I have, forget about even using the word right. Don't I have a choice to, like decide whether I want to read, whether I want to interpret, how I want to interpret. And I may reinterpret, so many people in different ways. So similarly, and it's wonderful that you shared this part about seeing it through political science because, as they say, almost everything in life seems political. Uh, yeah, to me, I mean, more and more as I see it. But also, it's again the way we choose to present it or choose to understand it. We don't even have to present, disclose, whatever, right? Or we may only selectively disclose, okay, to selective people or selective things we may disclose, yeah, about ourselves, our understanding. But whatever it is, it's nice because many times we are seeing, or at least I have seen, that many kind of socio-political movements, uh, they, I'm not, everybody is intersectional, right? Or I don't know, we can even contest that. But to me, right, everybody has multiple identities, whether they want to call it an identity or recognize that or want to show that or not. That's a different thing, right? So but yes, we might say, for instance, this movement is about labor rights, the other movement is about gender or something, but we cannot downplay or, so that is what, to me, I have seen happening in socio-political movements, not every movement, but some of them, or, yeah, and whereas the more they accept, you call it intersectionality, diversity of people, identities, thoughts, whichever, within same or similar movements, the more organically inclusive it can be, those movements can be, and I think they'll be more wholesome. And much as I don't want to use successful, at least they will be fruitful to the extent that uh, people feel kind of at least accepted or able, because otherwise I see that many times, and I have felt that the same way, like you kind of get tired, exhausted, and you want to sometimes just disconnect yourself. I mean, I have felt that I want to disconnect something from some particular movements or whatever, simply because uh, people can change, right? And why is it that I'm okay if I suppress my gender fluidity or whatever, asexuality, but if the moment I even uh, raise or identify myself as that, it becomes a problem. Yeah. So I think, you know, at least that's what, was very heartwarming when you told me said a few, not just me, you said a few seconds ago that you sort of got to know, or kind of, in another way, like, through political science, whatever texts or discourses or whichever, you got to, understand, or at least explore, or even got access to information, if I've understood that correctly, about gender and sexual fluidity, diversity, and how it is an integral part of so many other things about, uh, basically about any human. Yeah. So that, I think, I'm so glad you also, I'm very grateful that you shared that. Yeah. And now, I don't know if it's a fair question, but, or you can just either answer it to the extent possible or completely pass it. I know that you have studied abroad, okay? maybe not for very long, but for some years, right? So, do you see, whether in an institution or generally in academia or any kind of, say, intellectual educational spaces or academic spaces, uh, you know, less or more acceptance, or rather just, letting you be you kind of thing? Is that a fair question? Do you want to answer?
Uh, I guess it can be a fair question. It can be there can be a fair answer to that question as long as I like really just put this across that this was completely just my experience. And fortunately, I did have a really good experience. I went and I studied in the university space. And also just I was surrounded by very nice, accepting people who also, most of them were also just um, politically sort of radical, and also belonging to various identities within like the queer umbrella. So it was really never a point of contention that I was somebody different, and then hence I needed to negotiate space for myself. That was never the case. And also, yeah, with in terms of interactions with professors and things like that, I could just tell them that I preferred a certain name and that I preferred certain pronouns, and then they kept that in mind. And it's interesting because the friends I made, sometimes if the professor was speaking to me or like referred to me to refer to a point that I made in front of a larger class, and if they by mistake like slipped up with the pronouns, my friends would correct it for me. They would say, "Hey, professor, just to give you a heads up, Sam uses these pronouns and stuff like that." So, yeah, little things like that, as well as just larger things like the academic environment, um, was pretty fruitful, and it was. I think it also definitely played a big part in um, the kind of intellectual labor that I could do. I mean, because at the end of the day, to be able to have time to think is a very privileged thing, right? Because then I don't have to immediately think about things like survival. I don't have to think about things like actually assuring my body safety and things like that, which I know is a reality for so many people belonging to marginalized identities in various contexts. And I was fortunate enough that that wasn't the case. So I could do the intellectual work that I wished to do in peace because the environments around me were for the most part, very conducive, I suppose, to both myself and to give me space to do that. Um, yeah, that was mostly the case. It's interesting because sometimes you sort of can think only about the place that you're from when when you are looking at it from a different perspective. I feel like that was sort of the case with me as I was trying to understand me as a queer person in my home city. And I was a political science student, and then later on, I went on to do like more transdisciplinary work. And sort of this idea of space kept coming up again and again for me. And in political science disciplines, it's like you learn very well how to do systems analysis. You learn very well how to look at problems from an eagle eye point of view, from a point of view of what works, what doesn't, almost a problem solving approach to things. But in doing that, and it almost sometimes disembodies you from what you're studying. Because a lot of the times you're talking about human things and human acts and human um, issues, but from a dehumanized point of view. And I say dehumanized not necessarily in a derogatory way. Just it's simply just got to do with the structure of how you think in politics. And so as I was also just I worked for a little bit in between independently. I still do. And I was engaging with a lot of anthropological as well as human geographical texts. And so this idea of embodiment in space and phenomenology, which is essentially the knowledge that is born from oneself, the one knowledge that is embodied in one person. All of these things kept coming up. And this was also a transitional period academically for me as I was trying to expand beyond just political science and sort of grow my roots. And I felt like I really did want to do a lot of work that transcended disciplines, mostly because it was just naturally what I was drawn to in terms of form, as well as because I wanted to like retain the kind of rigor that political science gave me, but also make like pathways into spaces where I can think in a more freer manner than some political science disciplines would allow me to. And I found that disciplines like sociology and geography especially let you do that, because they have like what I call myself, which is a transdisciplinary researcher, is called an undisciplined researcher in sociology. So they do acknowledge that this fictitious there are porous and sometimes fictitious borders between disciplines, and there's a lot of good to be done in crossing these boundaries, and also looking above them in order to do really fruitful work. And also I preferred the word transdisciplinary researcher because it's not that very different from interdisciplinary work, but there is an emphasis on the kinds of knowledge that are produced. So interdisciplinary still is within academic context. Transdisciplinary acknowledges that various people from various communities also do produce knowledge in their own ways that are not legitimized in academic institutions all the time. And but then it does try to use that knowledge in order to do the kind of problem solving that I was trained to do in political science, but then do it for human issues. So I don't know, it's kind of felt like there were these small threads that connected me from like my formal training as well as what I'm trying to do now. And you'd see that the account I've joined from is called a queer third place. um Again, it's a fascination with place for me, place and space. I mainly did it because so Chennai is where I am based at currently, and it's my like home city. And I like came back to Chennai, and I was really trying to find these ideas, these like areas of queer place, and like where do queer communities sort of gather. And so like this was a preoccupation for me, both socially and more casually for me as just a resident in this city, as well as academically. I was interested in trying to understand the ways in which political, social, and cultural forms of space and place, how they sort of constitute and construct identities, communities, and things like that. And if you actually look up the definition for what that is, it would show up queer geographies, and that is the academic field that I'm currently working in. But I digress. A queer thought place is basically a community space. So a first place is home, second place is work, third place is any community place, and a queer third place is simply a community space for like queer folks. And I do mean queer quite broadly here. It would relate to your gender and sexuality, or any other different ways in which you find yourself to be queering the any sort of binary boundaries you encounter. And we read social theory, we read text, and yeah, it's mostly for discussing micropolitics like feminist queer politics and things like that. I mean, there are currently like reading groups that we run, and of late we've been trying to do a monthly thing. And it came about because I wanted there to be like a third place to discuss this sort of thing. And also, I tried doing it in person in the city, but I myself am traveling quite a lot. So I was also fascinated by the idea of just how much us as queer people we depend on these online networks for identity and just for solace and for community and so many other aspects of how we go about our everyday lives and how important it is. And I thought, well, I guess this could be another addition. And if it helps anybody, then it's great. Otherwise, we just end up having a good conversation.
That is fab. I mean, and thank you so much. You almost like read my mind. The questions I wanted, and I was also having to myself. Yeah, sort of I interpreted trans and interdisciplinary in a slightly different way, but glad that detailed that, and also this whole curiosity about queer third place. Yeah, and so lovely, but sometimes also, to me, more and more, I mean, I try to find commonalities all the time. I think subconsciously, consciously, over so many decades in my life, over, I think it's such an inherent part of me finding commonalities, that I'm not saying that we people are, queer people, wherever, caste, race, geography, disability, whichever, right? Somewhere more and more I'm hearing that uh, despite everyone's best efforts, queer or straight, queer people overall, again, I don't want to totally generalize, but many queer people I have seen or met online, offline, tend to be finally comfortable, or feel safer with other queer people, with people, whatever. And again, it need not be so for everybody, or maybe there may be phases. So I think something like this queer third place, where just kind of hang out, or just be with each other, be by yourself, be yourself, is so important, and there's a dearth of. And so thanks for saying that and sharing, and and I'm hoping that anybody who wants to explore it, or just want to understand, or maybe can DM you, and yeah. So I just wanted to sort of ask, and so that is a, yeah, sorry, yeah, continue.
No, they can definitely do that. So primarily we are a like reading group based. We do reading group based activities. So yeah, like I said, we read social theories and we discuss texts and we sort of like reinterpret them, do that sort of work. Yeah, it was also born out of this like desire I had to sort of address one of the things I noticed, which is that a lot of people are interested in feminist politics and wanting to critically engage with it, but a lot of the literature on it is still quite inaccessible in terms of language itself. Because the way you write academic language, like it is sometimes quite dense, and there are so many like genealogies of I suppose knowledge that precede it, and you need all this historical knowledge to navigate it. And sometimes it can get a lot. Like you probably wanted to read a nice text and engage with it, but then at the end of the day, you get overwhelmed, and that sort of stuff can easily happen, especially if you're not in academia. So, but then I am in like academic spaces all the time, and it is the work that I'm doing. So I thought I could be a facilitator in terms of like guiding people through discussions and like selecting these texts so that we can read them together and we can understand and we can see how these different feelings and aspects of politics that we feel and experience are sort of talked about in these contexts as well, and to also introduce people to these ideas in case they wanted to explore them in greater detail in their own time. Because there are reading groups like this all the time within academic spaces for academics, but I haven't seen that many where it is sort of bridging the gap between a lay audience who are still quite engaged and are interested in these issues, but don't belong to these spaces in terms of the job that they do.
Right. Yeah, nice. Also, it's so important because what is uh, academic knowledge for, or who is it for, if it cannot reach,
Precisely.
yeah,
Precisely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, right. I'm all the time saying this to so many people in academics, whether they are doing PhD, masters, or already done. And lately, offline, online, even people who I don't know, I just kind of read especially posts on X, Twitter, which are that more and more people are beginning to not just understand this, admit it, that in a way, actually, it's not just about demystifying. I think it is also reducing the gaps, and that itself is very political, because we know that knowledge has been exclusionary, right? Access to that, caste wise, race wise, gender wise, yeah. So I think for many of us, yeah, sort of reading and writing may have come naturally as an interest, and we were probably fortunate, not just fortunate, maybe privileged also, to be able to. It's a different thing that I don't know if I want to call it my era. Well, in our eras, we live in multiple eras, and I think my era is still not over. But anyway, all that privilege didn't help me understand or discover asexuality until maybe a decade ago. So, yeah. So sometimes I like to say, uh, none of this helped me in any way, right? Anyway, about, especially with regards to my gender or sexuality. So I had to do this whole unlearn, relearn, and question. And it was not even questioning or exploring, it was like doubting myself, which was completely avoidable stress. But anyway, yeah, so this is fantastic to hear, what you're doing through a queer third place. You know, I just can't help, every time I hear the word place, space, I keep seeing ace in that. Yeah. Right. So anyway, uh, and coming to, the other thing about you, right? When you said language, okay, for me, language is not just the language of academia, because of course we come from such an inherently linguistically diverse country, right? And more so, especially, since I also grew up in Chennai, rather it was Madras that time, and I think people who are largely Tamil speaking have made it even more obvious that it is so important to, I don't want to oversimplify it, but not just translate, but to localize terms, because when you localize, you don't do exactly like transliteration or something, but you make it contextual, and you make it, there's no point, for instance, uh, uh, putting, saying, like trying to find a word in Ilakkana Tamil or Sen-Tamil for asexuality, right? Much as it might have existed. Right. So that எல்லாருக்கும் புரியாது இல்லையா? So that is what I'm, so do you also do such things, like try to, if not sit and translate or whatever, but look at texts which have been translated originally from Tamil or the other way around, or for that matter, any other language, or even have some of these discussions in other languages?
Oh, that's a good question. I do have to say, so two things come to mind when you were saying what you just said. One is there is already work done by this really cool organization called Queer Chennai Chronicles.
Yes.
Yeah, they do a lot of work on talking about queerness in Tamil, and they are a arts and literary publication space, and that's mostly what they do. They even run these pan India media workshops to train journalists on how to speak about, speak with, work with queer communities, especially when they deal with LGBTQIA plus issues. So I think like work, I'm just I just got reminded that such work is already like naturally done, and yeah, I just wanted to shout out in case anyone else was unaware and wanted to check their work out. But also, this is interesting because I was recently speaking with Enakshi, who I think has already also been on this live with you before, who is a queer linguist, and we were talking about how
Ace linguist also, actually. Yeah.
yes,
Anyway.
yes, exactly. Ace queer linguist. We were talking about how a lot of the times, just like trying to translate these ideas into our local languages feels important, but then does not need to be translated in terms of terms itself.
Right.
Because you're trying to pin down a feeling, you're trying to pin down a mode of living, and that's really what you're trying to do. Sometimes the language that you have and the language that we're speaking right now, which is English, may be inhibitive to the way in which we perceive these identities, or the limit to how we are going to understand these experiences. And so we were talking about how it would be more generative to have these conversations with people in terms of uh, an idea. Like, try to have conversations with people to say, hey, this is how I feel. These are the reasons I feel the way I do about it. And you really don't need to be using the terms, like, especially if I'm trying to have a conversation in Tamil about like my gender or about my sexuality, I'm really not looking to use these. I suppose these would be newer terms. So I'm really not looking to use these terms and confuse people. Like, I'm just trying to say, hey, I don't actually, that's not something I prioritize in my life right now, or perhaps never will. These are my interests. This is who I am. So I suppose the way I present myself then, because of lack in that vocabulary, would differ. And I think there's something really nice about it, because when you don't use these terms that you have access to, and when you're trying to speak about your experience differently, it unlocks different parts of the ways in which you relate to yourself, you relate to other people. And that's a beautiful aspect of human interactions. And yeah, so I usually do that instead of trying to look for these identities. But other than that, to more directly answer to the question that you asked, I don't actually read a lot of Tamil literature, but I do know, and but my I do have friends and family who are avid readers, and I do know that a lot of the times when I speak about my identities with them, they'll say, "Oh, this is something I read about in that novel, in that series, and this character was like that." And it always makes me happy, because I'm like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's really not very serious. It's like none of our identities are that serious. It's just human experience. And we've been talking about how amazing and diverse and different we all are in different languages throughout the ages. And I guess it's just a matter of trying to identify that, and sometimes taking the time out to explain that if you have the space to do that, I suppose.
Yeah. அது ரொம்ப important விஷயம். Why I keep saying periodically things in Tamil, or in fact, I speak a few more languages, including computer languages, because I originally come from a computer software programming background. But anyway, that apart, we've tried to make these conversations multilingual where it is possible and sometimes necessary. But also so that people do not, if they're watching later, that they'll be like, okay, hey, these people, people here are not only sticking to English, so they just feel more affirmed and comfortable reaching out. So that's also why, yeah. I specifically was switching to Tamil, and sometimes it's inevitable for me. Sometimes I keep switching between languages, and sometimes, I mean, sometimes or even occasionally, uh, uh, first current system, not to translate it than to what and doesn't know any language to take on the responsibility of doing it to other, just topic. Uh, yeah, yes, such attempts. Uh, longest, uh, uh, because I mean, it so happened that last year, uh, and also, actually, part of this came because of my very close and sort of 7-8 year association with intersex people, where people who spoke only Tamil or say only Bengali did not know that they're intersex, or did not, know that there are other intersex people, and language was a major barrier. So that is when I realized, even with asexuality, and it's also because I find it difficult to communicate about asexuality in other languages without using English. And when I'm talking to somebody who's hardly knows English, it becomes very difficult. And especially when they're in the queer community and they're trying to sort of, just be understanding, more affirming, more supportive. And here, language is a big barrier. So that is when I realized that, yes, communication, people, sort of what thing, or reasonably correct thing. Yeah. Rather than completely mistranslate. Yeah. That's also why. Uh, and so, this is something which I hear from ACES in other countries also. Yeah. That especially if they happen to be bilingual or whatever, that it's important of sort of communicate it, or for that matter, many things in life or in the world itself, right? I find, yeah. For instance, talk about, but then how do I communicate to somebody who doesn't relate to that term, or doesn't even like, hey, அது பார்க்க முடியாத விஷயம், and they'll be like, why are you harping? Anyway, so, yeah, and so, I'm also glad and very, thankful about what you shared, not just today, but in our earlier conversations. So, hey, people who are watching now or later or whatever listening, uh, there have been other very interesting, insightful conversations I've had with Sam offline. Yeah, they are public use, but what on uh, hearing, uh, yeah, and what it feels.
Ritash, I can't hear you. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear what you were saying for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could hear only noise from your side, so I don't know if it was that, because I'm speaking as loudly and I'm keeping it as close as possible. So, did you hear the part about why translating correctly is so important,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
yeah,
that
yeah.
part? So, okay, fine. All that is the thing. What I was talking about is also, in some of our one-on-one conversations over the last year or something, I was like, some very important insights you gave me, or rather we exchanged. So, Amit, among that, I think what stood out for me was how you talked about, some of the educational institutions, academic spaces, whatever you want to call them, are, I mean, the higher education ones especially are also slowly becoming, not just queer inclusive, but I think supportive, right? That way. And it so happened that that article, I hadn't planned too much for it, and it just came about, and I found lots of positive response or appreciation for that. Like that, apparently it's a very important piece. So I'm just thanking you again for your very realistic and inputs, and it was very very uh, um, just affirming to hear that you are in a queer trans affirmative space, professionally and academically in India. Okay, which actually should not be such a an exception or something, but that is the way life is. Considering India, South Asia have so many indigenous, queer, trans, whatever subcultures, cultures, groups, communities. Okay, so you know, it's going to be 10 o'clock. I mean, notwithstanding the bit of time that went in, sorting the technical issues. We've been in this conversation for over an hour now, so I don't want to keep you long. But a couple of things which I was wondering if you want to reflect on. One is that, you know, I mean, the way campuses are or educational spaces are, again, whether it is high school, sorry, or higher education as in university, pre-university, college, undergrad, postgrad. Okay, uh, especially in government institutions. I'm not saying whether you have been there or not, but hopefully you've heard, like, first-hand or second-hand experiences that finally it's the government which is making all these laws, right? Right from the Nalsa judgment to, um, how do you, is it even a fair question to say, just like there's still so much inherent casteism, okay? So much misogyny. Similarly, so much of heteronormativity, right? What do you think, should be done or is being done in these campuses or, academic spaces to just make intersectional queer people feel safe, comfortable, right? Not just the cursory, okay, fine, yeah, I mean, that is the law, so we will take you, kind of.
Wow, that's a big question, isn't it? And I think the answer really depends on what sort of institution you're looking at entirely. Because, like, there are different kinds of private institutions too. There are some that sort of prioritize inclusivity, and like they actually say that, but then some of them do practice and follow through as well. There are a couple that exist in India. But then there are a few more where they are quite conservative in their politics, and they don't make any. I mean, they don't mince words, or they don't hide that. So a lot of the times, what happens is within these campuses, there is a lot of subversive work done by student communities and student collectives, but it wouldn't register necessarily as a queer collective or queer work. So I guess institutionally in these spaces there is a not lot of help, but things are done by student leaders and student activists and things like that. I think Also, it's interesting because if you look at, okay, I guess I could give you the example of Tamil Nadu, because it's something that I'm looking at in other contexts as well for my research. If you see some of the most progressive trans and LGBTQIA plus policies in India exist in Tamil Nadu. Probably second after that comes Kerala, but like primarily in Tamil Nadu, it, like in terms of policy and just social provisions and things like that, it's been pretty good. But if you see queer life as such, more publicly it thrives in the neighboring states. There is a very like interesting lack of, I would say, visible queer networks and communities like throughout the year, in even in like capital cities like Chennai. There are, as in there are queer events happening, and there are queer led initiatives, but then they are somehow sometimes seasonal. There isn't like space necessarily for like even for queer organizations. A lot of the times they do work out of hybrid organizations, or there is one space that a lot of different collectives use, and there are interesting like incidences like that. So, and also just if you see, it is as a society, I think there is like so much more value on quote unquote tradition, and there and it in Tamil Nadu is still sort of in many ways conservative, as compared to other states where there aren't as many like progressive queer provisions. So what you see is a lot of legal and social provision doesn't necessarily translate to also societal expectation and things like that. Sorry, societal acceptance and things like that. So what happens is, for example, there is a in 2022 there was a Madras High Court mandate that basically said that it is unacceptable for institutions to for people to like bully people belonging to LGBTQI plus identities. But that stuff isn't in actually carried forward and monitored in schools or in other office spaces or institutions and things like that. Like these things are there on an institutional level, but like on the ground level, societal level, actually a lot of people are not even aware. And so I guess a lot of work needs to be done, first of all, to understand like the state of policies and laws within your own local context. It's very important you get in touch with that. You understand what laws you already have, what laws people around you belonging to your communities have been fighting for, what your position on that is. I'm sorry, I am a political science major. I'm going to be talking always in terms of these aspects. So I would say one of the very important things to be done is for you as a either as a student or a teacher or a working professional to understand the local politics of your community, to be engaged with that. A lot of the times people sort of know what's happening, especially in the past 5 years, sort of at a glance, but not in depth. So I would say like understand your context, understand what's happening, understand where your priorities and loyalties lie, and then just a lot of stuff that needs to happen going forward is like sensitization stuff. And also if you know your laws, and if someone actually does something to not follow it, like you can say that I have the legal right to something, and then you are able to question it and defend yourself. And the more you're able to do that, the more you're able to show that actually people belonging to like various marginalized communities cannot be taken for a ride, because there are things that are protected. Even if you look at a national level, there are some things that queer people face all the time that are just basic human rights violations. Just I suppose then in that case it would be like knowing your rights, and then being well versed in using that in case there are dire circumstances that do present themselves, and you have to defend yourselves. I guess like it would start with you knowing and you educating your immediate communities, and then sort of building up from there in terms of making student communities, and then maybe reaching out to you. And here I'm speaking especially in university context. You forming student collectives, reaching out to your student union, having a conversation with the university board or with your faculty. Actually, a lot of the times faculty are very like happy to help with a lot of the struggles that students also face. It just sometimes becomes like they themselves are inhibited by just the way things are structured in institutions to sometimes not question things or things like that. So I guess like slowly gather support and then try to see what can be done.
Yeah, actually, it's nice that you mentioned about what Madras High Court has been doing. My gosh, between I think 2019 to even last month,
Yeah,
or even within a slew of either judgments or revisiting or prodding from the NMC to NCRT to like even the local Tamil Nadu government. Like I mean, it's just led the way. But as you said correctly, the reality obviously there's a major gap. Uh, and the other thing is, yeah, obviously we think that Kerala and Karnataka. Uh, certain things, or even to some extent Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, they are not having those, the either the law courts or the government doing enough. But as you said, eventually, like yes, much as we may say, for instance, the Al Nassar judgment came 12 years ago, this month, right? And similarly, down September 2015, all that. On one side, some unfortunately, it seems to be just about kind of not just mere symbolism. It's a little more than that, but it has what is it translated to? Very little. Yeah. Having said that, still somewhere we feel affirmed, comfortable, safe. That at least there's something. Not and we know that the courts jurisprudence in India or even so many parts of the world is very patriarchal, very casteist, very racist. Yet somewhere it gives that feeling that okay, we seem to matter, right? Whether it's I mean, there's so many other things which have happened in Tamil Nadu, especially the glossary, you know, uh, what was that? The thing that you said about
yeah,
almost.
anti-bullying, curriculum inclusion.
Yes, curriculum inclusion, and they've not stopped it only at the government, Tamil Nadu government. No, they're prodding NCRT, and similarly for the NMC, the National Medical Commission, right?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
the MCI, right? Which I think until then, I mean, even now they have only declared the very harmful conversion therapy as professional misconduct. I think we are asking for much more than that, but I think that also wouldn't have happened if not for the Madras High Court repeatedly prodding them, like
yeah,
mandating it, like saying that not just declare it, but actually change the syllabus and then ensure that curriculum changes are implemented, are followed, and yet there is sensitization for already people who are practicing medicine.
yeah,
All kinds of this thing. So it is so more so also because I'm looking into that and writing about it a lot lately. But yeah, it is, and each of those judgments, if you go through, first of all, they're very plain English, and I'm sure they'll be in Tamil also. It's not at all legalese, and we think. I mean, for instance, I've been accessing these documents, and have to be extra grateful to Justice N. Anand Venkatesh. Each of that is a gem. It has like 5, 6 points. It's not just about NCRT. It's not just about NMC. It's not just about as you say, telling institutions to pay heed, right? And even schools and all, not just colleges, universities, telling the police that you can't harass, and yeah.
yeah,
Uh, so I think it is like so not just nuance. I mean, it's nuanced, it's detailed, And it is so fundamental. That is what is, reassuring, right? That we as humans, I mean, yes, what has the SCST Act done? It's the first time, I mean, it was passed in 89. And similarly, we may say, the same thing. I'm returning to again and again as a judgment and all that. What has the Trans Act done? It's again considering also when the rules were passed, it's almost 5 years now. Yet, still the fact that they are there itself means that uh, you know we make sense to even people who we, at least someone like me, who I've only seen so much of patriarchy in judges. I mean, it's not even patriarchy, it's complete or deliberate ignorance. I've seen retired or near retirement or, so-called senior or experienced high court judges asking, oh, this much domestic violence happens. Even in cishet relationships, they are unable to believe that women are beaten and kicked and, even, yeah, irrespective of class, caste, whichever. And to think that some of them have at least a couple of them have proactively, done this, I think, yeah, and I'm glad that you also are focusing on that so much. And yes, I mean, since I know Oridam folks and the Tamil Nadu Vanavil Kootamaipu, the Queer Batur folks and all that, I know, but I think, I'm not trying to justify or defend. Unfortunately, I think somewhere, and this is not just a phenomenon in Chennai, I don't even know whether they should call it a phenomenon, in Bangalore and some cities across India, right, which at one time were very active and sort of leading and visibilizing queer voices, across the class, caste, yeah, barrier. I'm not saying we're also free of all this internal discriminations and issues. But anyway, now I don't know whether we have taken the backseat deliberately or just having other priorities. I don't know. It's not very different in some of these cities, but also on the other side, what is again for me very heartening is that the so-called small towns, tier 2 ones and stuff like that, uh, uh, whether it's in far-flung Palampur in Himachal or Amaravati in Andhra or anywhere, or not just Guwahati but like other towns in Assam or somewhere, that there are queer collectives trying to do whatever they can. And most important, apart from, of course, doing the events, public events and the pride marches, is at least being there, for, or Indore. Unfortunately, though, the Indore safe house was attacked. Internal community politics, unfortunately. But anyway, at least, things are moving forward that way. Okay, so Sam, I'm not saying last words, but anything you want to, because I really, really think, to be fair to you, and to anybody who's engaging now or later with this conversation, it's way past, I think now 2 hours, right? So, yeah, way past an hour and a half, sorry, not yet 2 hours. But anyway, how would you like to end this? Any particular thoughts, message you have?
No, I guess nothing that comes to mind. Just thanks for the conversation today, and it was nice to speak with you on, as you said, the UID. I I guess I actually know I really don't have any thoughts, as we basically touched on a lot of different things. So there are no like bow ties that I wanna like tie up at the end or anything like that.
So yeah. Anyway, that was not what I was expecting. So yeah, this is wonderful. Oh my God! I mean, this is luckily, I mean, very nicely, organically happening in so many of our conversations. And thanks for saying that you went through Inakshi's conversation, or at least parts of it. or even notice that we did that, because that's the kind of feedback that we are helping us. I mean, periodically I'm hearing from the most sometimes unexpected places or people that, these conversations are organic and, sometimes unintentionally, unknowingly touching on so many points and seeing like connections, yeah, between various issues. But thank you, thank you, everybody. Uh, yeah, Priya, and yeah, if Friday day next to everybody, and also yeah, also had transgender day on 21st March. That was also something commemorated. Okay, on everyone, thank you so much, and all the best. Yeah, good night.
Good night. Thank you so much for today.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.